Did you guys see that Senator Mike Lee had his personal Twitter account briefly suspended after threatening Japan? Okay, this title is a little deceptive, right? But it's not technically inaccurate. This is technically true. Okay, so Senator Mike Lee has been very aggressive about the arresting and jailing and like I think the guy was given 3 years of a U.S. Navy lieutenant. I forget what was his name. I was reading up on it actually before stream. His name was Ridge Alcoys. Okay, Ridge Alcoys. I can't really say his name. We're just gonna say Ridge. There's a guy called Ridge who was in Japan as a U.S. military officer, U.S. military soldier, U.S. Navy lieutenant to be more specific, and he was driving with his wife in the car and his children down a mountain in Japan. Then he starts getting a little like woozy and he starts to veer off the road, but then he gets it under control. And his wife is sick, so she doesn't take over. So he keeps driving until eventually, as he's driving down the mountain, he veers off the road. He slams into a noodle shop. He ends up killing a man and the mother of that person, as well as injuring that man's wife. Killing 2 people, injuring another, ramming into a noodle shop. Cops come there. The argument from him is, I'm sorry, it was a medical incident. I didn't have control. It was, you know, altitude sickness. The Japanese say, no, this is an altitude sickness because as you're coming down the mountain, you should not be becoming altitude sickness. That shouldn't be a thing. And so you're actually going to get 3 years in the slammer. Now, it's a little bit more complicated. If you want to get the specifics of the case, the senator actually talks about how a lot of people have their sentences suspended. And in this case, he wasn't suspended. And so that's making them feel a little suspicious. Like maybe they're going after this guy because he's a soldier. And there's a history of American soldiers not treating locals in Japan very well. And it might make the Japanese look bad. But that's all a theory. There's no evidence of the Japanese judicial system treating this guy unfairly. You can talk about like statistics for suspended sentences, and he didn't get one after scraping up all this money to help pay for the families, to help pay for the coverage of the damages, medical bills, stuff like that. But there's no evidence that it was handled improperly, and the guy got 3 years. And this has been something that has gotten a negative reaction from a lot of Americans and a lot of senators who sent a letter a few months ago to Japan saying, hey, let him go, please. Just let him go. Come on, let him go. And Japan was like, no, we're not letting him go. What Mike Lee then decided to do, now, obviously, this is a complicated situation. 2 people are dead, another person injured, a noodle shop destroyed. This person is saying that it was due to altitude sickness. The Japanese aren't believing it. They have no evidence that he was intoxicated. They didn't test his alcohol, his blood for alcohol, anything like that. They never found any evidence of that. But it's a complicated issue nonetheless, right? It's complicated. Whether or not you think the guy should be let go or not, whether or not you believe the Japanese or you believe the family saying it was a medical incident, Mike Lee started to say, like, hey, maybe we will not support Japan with weapon sales and troops and protection anymore unless they let go of this guy. And so if they don't and then he gives them an ultimatum. If they don't release this guy by March 1st, this is what Mike Lee said on Twitter, then I am going to start conversations to start withdrawing American aid to Japan. Like, as in, we're going to pull all of our soldiers back. We're no longer going to work with you. We're going to start pulling back because obviously you don't treat our soldiers right. You got to stop persecuting our American servicemen. Japan ignored it, even though he added the Japanese prime minister in the tweets. Actually, I wonder if we can find the tweets. Oh my God, the Rolling Stones article is not here. Okay, well, we can get it here. The tweets are here. Let's open this in a new tab. You've made whatever point you wanted to make by imprisoning him and claiming, quite misleadingly, that you're treating him the same as you would a Japanese national. You've made your point poorly and counterproductively, but whatever, it's time to bring your standoff to an end. Let's face it, Kishida 230, that's the Prime Minister of Japan. He just added him. And this is, by the way, this is his burner account. This is @based Mike Lee. This isn't even his congressional account. This is his burner account that he uses to tweet his hot takes, apparently, which is a real thing that he has. You've got a really good security arrangement with the United States, and you've had the luxury of not having that arrangement discussed or seriously questioned in Congress for a long time. That's about to change. No, it isn't. I'm going to be for real with you. No matter what Mike Lee says, he is not going to get the Biden administration to rethink our security relationship with Japan and make it look like maybe we should pull back all of our troops and we should not be working with Japan. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen with Democrats. And Mike Lee is already in the minority in the Senate. He's not on any committees that have control of this. In fact, he's not on, I don't think, really any influential committees really at all. And so I don't know how he's going to do this. And so this is a threat that, like, he can't pull the trigger on. He just can't do it. Like, I guess he can go on Tucker Carlson and be like, well, Tucker, do you remember Pearl Harbor? And, like, I don't know. He can do that on Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson be like, I do vaguely remember Pearl Harbor. What happened there? What happened there? I heard they kamikazed us and we're working with like, whatever they're going to do on Tucker Carlson. But other than that, this Mitch McConnell isn't going to move on this. He's not going to move on this. He'll laugh Mike Lee out of the room. The idea that the entirety of the American and Japanese relationship could be called into question because this guy, whether it was an accident or not, swerved off the street, killed 2 people, endangered his own kids and his wife, right? And injured another, destroyed a noodle shop, and is getting 3 years. And that is going to, we're going to put that on the chopping block for the entirety of the Japan-American alliance. That's insane. Mitch McConnell won't bite that. I know Kamala Harris won't bite it. Joe Biden won't bite it. If he was in the House, he's not. He's a senator. Kevin McCarthy wouldn't bite it. Chuck Schumer isn't going to bite it. None of these people are going to bite it. They're just not. And so, like, when he says he's going to start this discussion, like, I assume he literally just means on a podcast, because outside of that, that isn't happening. Now, putting that to the side for a moment. Now, I think the purpose of this is not to actually be like, I want to put America's support for Japan on the chopping block. The purpose of this from Mike Lee is, by doing this, Japan will be like, oh no, America will abandon us? We're scared of China. Okay, we'll do what you want. We'll release him. But that's not the best strategy, in my opinion. And I think the main reason why is, let's say you're the Japanese prime minister and you see on Twitter that a random senator, even though if you call up the president, he's going to say, don't worry about it. You call up Chuck Schumer in the Senate, he's going to say, don't worry about it. Call up Mitch McConnell, he's going to say, don't worry about it. Just as one guy is saying this, right? If he responded to this, which doesn't have basically any leverage in the first place, by saying, okay, we'll let him go because Mike Lee threatened our relationship, you know what that's going to look like to the Japanese public? Weakness. I don't know why what the Japanese would actually think about this wasn't really taken into consideration when Mike Lee planned this. But if you're a Japanese citizen and you see an interaction where a U.S. senator basically tells the Japanese prime minister to fucking jump and he jumps, the Japanese public aren't going to like that. They're going to be like, wait, what? You're just his lapdog? You're just going to, oh, he murdered 2 Japanese, in the minds of a Japanese person who would be more sympathetic towards this, is he, by accident, manslaughtered these 2 people and destroyed this noodle shop, injured this other person, and now we're just going to let him go because Big Bad America, one of their senators, said so. Yeah, you're weak. Not only are you weak, but I'm not going to vote for you again. It's going to look terrible. It's going to look awful. And this is in the backdrop of a relationship the United States and Japan has, where there have been instances where American soldiers have engaged in some sexually inappropriate behavior towards locals, where have done things that are very inappropriate with locals, and like a lot of scandals and stuff, like in places like Okinawa. So I really don't think this is a smart strategy. I don't think it's going to be convincing for the Japanese Prime Minister. I think the Japanese Prime Minister could get this settled up very quick with a call to the White House. So I don't think Mike Lee has any leverage here, and I don't think this is going to work. I don't think this is going to work at all, no matter how many times he goes on a podcast. In fact, I think it could possibly be counterproductive, because now the Japanese Prime Minister would be like, well, I don't want to look like I'm just backing down because an American senator told me so. You've given him less wiggle room instead of more, in my opinion. Terrible strategy from Mike Lee. Terrible strategy. Swing and a miss. Not going to work. You know how crazy it'd be if it did, though? If the Japanese Prime Minister like did a press conference, he was like, powerful and amazing Senator Mike Lee threatened us on Twitter. The reason we didn't respond is we were just shaking with so much fear of powerful Senator Mike Lee that we couldn't pick up the phone and tell them that we're sending the American back with loads of gold and gifts and concubines. Like, come on, get out of here.